Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. Mark Kazi here from Black Cat Comics in Rockin' Milpitas. Every Wednesday is New Comic Day and I like to give you some great reasons to get down to your local comic shop and pick up something fun to read. Boy, after the last couple of weeks, there's a lot of great books to talk about these days. Always saying it's a big week for Batman, and this week it's totally that. This is your latest issue of the main Batman book. This is your part 6 of Jokes and Riddles. I don't want to tell you what's in this book. The internet may have already spoiled it for you. Boy, Batman's one of the biggest books in comics, and these days it's been even bigger. If you're one of the 3 people that's not reading Batman currently, grab the reprint to number 25 and catch up as fast as you can, because it's one of the best books in comics. Speaking of one of the best books in comics, this is Batman Dawnbreaker. This is your fancy, shiny metal book for the week. Can't say enough about these Batman Dark Metal one-shots that have been showing up. Red Death, totally sold out. Murder Machine, totally sold out. This is Dawnbreaker, probably going to totally sell out. Again, you need to be catching up on the Dark Knight's metal stuff, grabbing some of these one-shots. It's more than just an event. It's great stories and great art, like we're always talking about. Green Arrow is your other metal tie-in book of the week. There's been a Rebirth book tying into this metal stuff. Teen Titans, Nightwing, Suicide Squad. Now it's Green Arrow's turn. These also have been going fast, so get into your shop earlier. Make sure those are on your sub list. All-Star Batman, because like I say, it's always a big week for this guy. This is your out-of-continuity, great creator book. Can't say enough about All-Star. This is your 3rd or 4th story arc. It's just been great with, like I said, some of the best creators in comics doing that. Batman White Knight, another out-of-continuity Batman book. First issue of a new mini. You can read more about this one in our newsletter this week, because you guys can't get enough Batman, can't get enough Joker. How about Batman Shadow, or in this case, Shadow Batman? There was the DC version, Batman Shadow. Now this is the first issue of the Dynamite Comics version. You know, we're always talking about Dynamite. Going to be a lot of mashups this week. This is the first of them, because you love Batman, you love Shadow. You can actually read more about, or hear more about that one on our podcast from last week. Justice League, one of the other huge books DC has, also has Batman on the cover. And Nightwing, one of my favorite Bat characters. One of my favorite Rebirth titles as well. A couple of Harley books, which also sort of counts as a Bat title. That's your main book, Harley Quinn. But the one I've been wanting to talk about is Harley and Ivy meets Betty and Veronica. Told you we'd have more awesome mashups to talk about this week. If the title and the cover doesn't do it for you, well, you just don't love comics. That's just super awesome. Make sure you get down to your shop for that one. Superman, one of the biggest books in comics these days. Action Comics has been huge. Superman has been huge. He's taken on Deathstroke in this issue. Great cover too. Good stories, good art. Speaking of Deathstroke, there's your latest issue of Deathstroke. Taking on Kid Flash there. Green Lanterns, Cyborg, and Injustice round out your DC stuff for the week. Huge week for those guys. And speaking of huge week, boy, is there a ton of great Marvel stuff to talk about this week. How about my favorite title of all time? That's your latest issue of Avengers. This is number 672. Talking about a little Marvel Legacy these days. After last week's Marvel Legacy number 1, a lot of these returning to their original numbering, like my favorite, the Avengers here, or Iron Fist, one of the many Netflix superheroes going on these days. That's number 73, harkening back to Iron Fist number 14 from the 70s. Maybe you didn't know that Sabretooth started out as an Iron Fist villain. Super awesome. Jessica Jones, another Marvel Legacy title, but this one's not renumbering. It's keeping its number, but this is your Legacy Part 1 jump-in point for all you Netflix fans. Just like Iceman, keeping his numbering, but is the Legacy number 1 jump-in point, like Royals, also keeping its numbering, but is the Legacy number 1 jump-in point. Fun stuff. But we also get new titles as part of all this Legacy stuff too. This is Spirits of Vengeance. This is your Ghost Rider book with some Blade, because we haven't been getting enough Blade lately. All kinds of cool Marvel Legacy-ness going on these days, so make sure you check out the Marvel website, grab the Marvel Legacy number 1, catch up to all the moving and shaking. Speaking of moving and shaking, how about some X-Men Gold with some Apocalypse? That's also a Marvel Legacy jump-in point, though it doesn't really need one because everybody's reading X-Men Gold anyway. Like Astonishing X-Men. If you're any kind of X-Men fan, you're super stoked these days, and if you're not picking up Astonishing, you really need to, and that Mystique cover might do it for you. Old Man Logan, another X book for you there. That's your Wolverinery for the week. Spider-Man, Spider-Man Deadpool, Venom, one of your Marvel Legacy jump-in points, and Venomverse. Round out all your Spider books for the week. Always a good time to be a Spider fan. Hawkeye. It's not quite jumping up or catching up to the Marvel Legacy stuff yet, but this one might be flying under your radar, but it's been a really, really solid book. An old school Hawkeye fan myself. Black Bolt. And all new Guardians of the Galaxy. Round out your Marvel Universe stuff, unless you count Punisher the Platoon miniseries, bringing back Garth Ennis to the Punisher. Garth Ennis is, well, let's say controversial in the least, but I'm a big fan of his Punisher stuff and anxious to check that out. Harkens back to his Punisher Max days. And 3 different Star Wars books to talk about. Star Wars proper, that's your main book. It's the first issue of a new story arc. Star Wars Darth Vader, which might be even more popular than the regular Star Wars book. This book has been huge in selling out every issue, going to reprint. If you're a Star Wars fan or a sci-fi fan or just a comic book fan, might want to grab Darth Vader #1 and see what all the hubbub's about. And Captain Phasma #3 is the mini that's going on with Star Wars these days. Again, this stuff's all selling like crazy, so I don't really need to push you on it, but if for some reason you're not checking out the Star Wars books, again, if you're any kind of Star Wars fan, you really should. Don't talk a lot about trade paperbacks, but there's 3 great ones that I had to mention this week. This is your Thor vs. Hulk trade, getting you primed for Thor 3, the new Marvel movie. This is just a hodgepodge of all kinds of different Thor vs. Hulk brawls from the many eras of Marvel. One of my favorites is Avengers #10 or Defenders #10, whichever one it is, where they get this cover from. It's supersized, just chock full of awesomeness. Everybody loves a Marvel slugfest. And just in time for Halloween, we get Tomb of Dracula, Volume 1 in its epic format, and Werewolf by Night, Volume 1 in its supersized epic format. 2 of the greatest horror titles of all time. Like I say, just in time for Halloween. Somewhat kid-friendly, just because they're old-school comics. Can't say enough about this Tomb of Dracula one because every single issue has art by the all-time great Gene Colan. Anyway, don't talk a lot about trade paperbacks, but that's some great stuff. And for all the other guys, it's a pretty small week, but Usagi Yojimbo is your Dark Horse book of the week. Always like to mention Usagi Yojimbo and Stan Sakai. You should buy this book just because that guy deserves your money. And Walking Dead has a couple of things to talk about this week. This is your latest issue. I know most of you guys read this in trade paperback, but I'm always encouraging you to finish the latest trade, which is 28, I think, and catch up to the latest issue because, well, everything's more fun in periodical. This is the latest Walking Dead hardcover. This collects all of the little short stories that were in the Image Plus magazine that you may have missed. So if you're a Walking Dead fan, and again, if you're only picking it up in trade, you might not even be aware that these stories exist. But this is a really cool hardcover format. Not badly priced at $19.99. Don't know when this stuff is going to show up in the trade paperbacks. So again, if you're a Walking Dead fan, you're going to want to get up on that. Stray Bullets is my other Image book of the week because I love me some David Lapham and always have. I love this book. It's dark, it's sick, it's twisted, but if you like dark, sick, and twisted, Stray Bullets is the book for you. Green Hornet and the Spirit is my Dynamite book of the week. Told you before we'd be talking about some awesome